So today, guys, we have Tom Janoshalmi, a digital transformation executive here. And Tom, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Matthias. I'm glad to be here. Good to see you.
So we have a segment. We always start off with kind of the very beginning of this the story of the interviewee. So, what were your interests as a kid?
Oh, I was interested in cars, to be honest, Matthias. I was really into all kinds of cars, and funnily enough, when I was 12, and my teachers were talking to my parents about the future of a bright kid, and I said, oh, all I want to do is to become a car mechanic, and they nearly had a shock. And yeah, I always really loved cars and sports. These were the two things, water sports and yeah, all kinds of sports.
So you mentioned water sports. Were there any other particular sports that you were a fan of and that you participated in high school?
Yeah, I mean, even leading up to high school. So I did wrestling, Olympic wrestling growing up. It's really good for your, physique, your mental health. And I'm really grateful that I got introduced to that sport. It taught me a lot. And then I switched to karate. I did that for about 3 years. Again, I was grateful to the head coach who introduced me, who was my wrestling coach and a very highly reputable coach. And then he introduced me to karate. So yeah, with martial arts, you develop your self-awareness, and also the ability to think about your environment and, we as opposed to I. And so, yeah, I got through this process, as a teenager, your head is quite busy with what you can do as opposed to what you can learn and, what others can teach you. So yeah, it was a great experience.
So, what did you learn from, the culmination of being a student and an athlete, in high school?
In high school, yeah, look, I mean, as a student, you really do need to put the hard work in, no matter how talented and gifted you are. That was the one thing going through the process. And yeah, I was always grateful to, teachers who invested daytime in helping us. And then the combination of a student or, somebody who liked academics, but then liked sports too. I think it's really important to, keep that mental and physical health combination. Yeah. And once you're doing sports, I think your mind kind of switches off, the pressures of doing well in maths or whatever subject you love. And it also teaches you so many other things, that books and classrooms just can't.
Mhm. So, in college, you had a part-time job. You say that's correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
How,
I had to earn my money for sure.
yeah. How were you able to manage being a full-time student and working this part-time job?
Well, it wasn't easy, to be honest. I started as a waiter. So I did the morning shift at a hotel. And, I was serving guests from basically 6 a.m. to sometimes 11 a.m. And it meant that, sometimes I missed some of the lectures. And so I had to work extra hard. I was transparent about it. So I told, the lecturer that I might have a few misses. And in those days, there was no online version of it, right? It was the book and the teacher. So if you didn't have the notes from the lecture, you could be behind. But yeah, it's a commitment. I had no choice, Matthias, because I just didn't have the backing, if you like, from my parents or anyone in the family. I went to the UK to study, and it wasn't cheap, right? So I had to do it, and I remember, I always got marked down in statistics because I missed those lectures, so I had to put extra effort into to get the grades that I wanted. But again, I have no regrets because even that working experience taught me so many things, about just being grounded, you have to appreciate everything that you get from life, and things are not easy. So yeah, no regrets.
You studied at Budapest University of Technology for your master's, and then Newcastle University for your PhD, as you mentioned, UK, both with an emphasis on supply chain. Why the supply chain?
Oh, I was always fascinated with, this transformation from raw materials, whatever they were, all the way to, creating an end product. Even, as I mentioned to you, the fascination with cars. And then as I was getting older, I realized that, there is a pretty complex and sophisticated process of actually producing a vehicle, right? So I started looking at, okay, well, let's look at a screw that goes into the car, or, the windscreen wiper, and, how do you produce that rubber, that synthetic rubber, or how do you produce steel? And so I started to understand the concept of, from the very beginning of the process all the way to the end that rolls off the manufacturing line. And yeah, and that really fascinated me, how these complexities can line up, if you manage supply chain well. And yeah, that's what got me into both my specialization, my master's, and then I was really fortunate to get a scholarship and sponsorship from Shell, who were looking at solving some pretty complex problems in their supply chain. So I managed to combine the two.
It's really cool because in researching this video, I had to do a look into the supply chain. I had a very rudimentary understanding, and you know after going through it, it is really interesting. Like I watched a video on the whole process of a water bottle. You think, okay, a bottle, a label, a cap, maybe some water, but there's whole thing. You got to transport it. There's the actual get in the water, put in the bottle, transporting that, and it's just all this. It's crazy. It's really interesting. But as you mentioned, you did your doctoral research at Shell, as you mentioned. What did you learn from that experience?
I did learn, that numbers. I was always really into mathematics, and then I think that experience showed me how you can apply mathematics to solving, great problems. Because you go through the notions of studying basically a lot about, sophisticated mathematics, especially in operations research, and then that opportunity gave me the exposure to what it means, when you translate all that knowledge into a particular problem, and how you apply that. And we used MATLAB. I don't know how many of your viewers still remember a language and a tool called MATLAB. And that was really beautiful because you had what you had in your mind, and then you were able to codify that, and collect information, collect data from parts of the supply chain, and then visualize that. So yeah, it was a great connection of theoretical mathematics to real business problems using advanced tools.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Now we'll head into our 10-question game. It's kind of the midway segment of the video. It's become a
bring
fan
it on,
favorite.
Matthias. Bring it on.
All right, so answer these questions as quickly as possible and write what comes to your mind kind of right away or within like a 3-second time frame. You ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite car,
Porsche.
favorite city,
Wow. Vienna.
favorite country,
Australia.
favorite food,
Oh, goose liver.
favorite sport,
It would be swimming.
morning or night,
Morning.
favorite beverage,
Ooh, rum.
favorite time of the year,
Summer.
favorite book.
Oh, it has to be George Orwell's 1984.
Ah, we read that this year. And then this is the Holy Grail, LeBron or MJ.
Ooh, MJ.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yes. So well, you didn't have to pay me to say that. Um,
Yeah. What exactly did you like about George Orwell's 1984?
I think it was the time, when I read it, I was your age, Matthias,
Mhm.
roughly, and the concept of, you know, what the world could have looked like, if the Second World War ended differently. And yeah, I really like history, 20th century history, and just the way the book was written, and then later I saw the movie, and I didn't think the movie did that much justice to just the way he was able to describe, even the cell that he was put into, or, the way Big Brother spoke to individuals, and the whole, being controlled through a central, government and central economy. Um, yeah, I was just fascinated by how well. And when you think about it, when he wrote that book, a lot of what happened after the Second World War wasn't quite, that understood in terms of communism and socialism. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, because we had to read that this year too and write a paper on it. And so for my paper, I chose the similarities between the society in the book and the social media society of today, and how, the similar parallels of control you see in, the novel, and then also in within social media. But that's a paper for another day. Let's get into this second half.
Let's
So
do it.
your LinkedIn profile says you're a digital transformation executive. What do you do on a regular basis?
We work with a lot of what we call large enterprise customers of ours, and we help them define the the target, the future architecture of their transformation. So transformation has so many elements. There is obviously a process element, there's a people element, and then there's an underlying technology element. And if you think about it, Matthias, today it's not really the technology part that's limiting. With supercomputers, with cloud computing, with cloud storage availability, you can basically process any complex issues or problems. So how you sort of bring the dimensions together so that you have that program in place. That's what I help big clients achieve.
So you gave me the book, What It Takes, Lessons in the Pursuit of Excellence by Stephen Schwartzman. In the book, Mr. Schwartzman dedicates the success of Blackstone to its phenomenal culture. So what role does culture play in large corporation success?
I think culture plays a very significant role. And there's a cliche or a saying that culture eats breakfast. Sorry, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it is quite true. It's the DNA of an organization. How I give you a few examples, of what determines whether culture is helping you or hurting you. How inclusive you are. Are you open culturally to accept other opinions? If you and I are having a conversation, and you come with different background, with different experiences, and if the cultural environment allows us to have an open dialogue where we're appreciative of different viewpoints, I think that's a really good seeding ground for great ideas, right? So when it comes to culture, I think the right DNA for any company is to be 100% inclusive, where everybody has the same opportunity to contribute to success.
So now moving more into the niche specific, your supply chain. What has coronavirus taught us about supply chain risk management?
Well, a lot. If you think about the former definition of supply chain risk, we knew that the further we push the boundaries of an end-to-end supply chain out, the higher the risks are. If you think about, sourcing from Asia, and then doing the final assembly in a different country or on a different continent potentially, always had inherent transportational risks. Now with the pandemic, we learned that there could be immediate shutdowns, that you didn't plan for. Transportation routes were just shut down. The lead times increased by 2, 3, sometimes 5-fold, right? Because there were new fumigation policies brought in, or border control policies brought in. So I think it's the resilience that stands out for me. Companies now seek not only processes and technology enabled processes, but they look at their value chain with resilience in mind. What happens if my supplier goes completely in a shutdown or a lockdown, and how do I deal with that, right? How do I pivot my sourcing from that supplier to the next that cannot be in the same market unit or country? So I think it's supply chain resilience that is probably highly associated with risk.
So what do you think the potential addition of 3D printing can do for the supply chain, specifically manufacturing?
I think you already see the implications, Matthias. I don't know if you saw some of the shoe manufacturers already producing shoes 100% 3D printed. And the idea is that at some point, you will be able to print your own shoes at home. You don't need to go to a store. You basically giving the data about, either your previous shoes or your foot, dimensions, and the type of shoe that you are after, whether that's for running, walking, or some other purpose. And if you have the device, you can print that home. What's also fascinating for me, you mentioned manufacturing. I think with going back to the supply chain resilience, Matthias, I think one way of de-risking this inherent supply chain risk that the pandemic created is to basically be able to produce parts locally, right? Using 3D printing capability. And then when you think bigger, I know that in some countries, big construction projects are using 3D printing capability, printing, for example, bridges or parts, of bridges, then ultimately will carry, tons of weight when transport starts. So I think, the limit is the sky.
It's actually really interesting about the shoes. I've
Yeah.
never heard of that actually. To wrap it up here, what is the one thing you would have told a younger version of yourself, like a high school version or college version?
The one thing would be never doubt yourself. I went through stages when, as probably most of us do, you have questions, can I do it? Is this realistic? Will it happen? Is it feasible? And I think thinking bold and having a dream and following that dream is so important. When you're at that age, Matthias. So if I was you again or your age, I would probably put a little note on top of my computer to say, never doubt yourself.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much for being in the video. This is awesome. I really appreciate it. I know the viewers will appreciate it. So any final words before you head off?
Yeah, actually, I was too quick when you asked me about the favorite car, and I said Porsche. But when I'm truly, truly honest with you, then I would have to pick one car, and that's the Citroen SM. It's a 1972 model that has a Maserati engine. And if I had to share that, that's the car I would love to get.
Very interesting choice. All right, guys.
Yeah.
It's Matthias Trades. Peace out.
Thank you.
If you guys enjoyed, please go smash that like button and subscribe for more content similar to this.